What's up, everybody? This is Husbands Know Better. I'm Ben Husband. This is my brother Daniel Husband and our dad Daryl Husband. We are here. The NBA season has finished. The Oklahoma City Thunder are the NBA champs for this season. They defeated the Indiana Pacers last night in Game 7, 103 to 91. Uh, Awesome series. The games were incredibly close, but unfortunately, the Pacers lost their star player, Tyrese Halliburton, with just 7 minutes into the first quarter, which kind of paved the way for Oklahoma City to eventually establish a lead and basically just hang on until the end. SGA won MVP. Awesome for him. He had an incredible postseason. I found an interesting stat that he was one of just five players that have won MVP in the regular season and also MVP of the NBA Finals. So he is in company of LeBron James, MJ, Shaq, and Kareem. Only those four, and now Shea has won it as well. So that's pretty wild.
Really?
Um,
Larry Bird
and
did
then,
win it in 84 or 86? He
and
was
if
in
you
the
want to,
finals.
and if you want to tack on scoring title, last person to do that was Shaq in
Oh,
2000.
Okay.
hmm. I'm going to stage a minor protest about Larry Bird. I think there's something wrong there. I
I
think we're
will. All right. I
talking.
will. I will fact check while you tell me a little bit about your thoughts on this game seven, Dad.
Okay, I'll keep my emotions in check because I'm, as always, sporting a Boston Celtics shirt, and I'll keep my emotions in
Of a
check.
great boss of a great current Boston Celtic player.
It was a great year that year. I wish we'd won the finals, but whatever. Anyways, back on track. Okay, so last night's game, um, it was so heartbreaking to see Halliburton go down. And there are so many players that have calf strains that lead into Achilles injuries. I would just shut him down. You can't just shut him down when it's the finals. And fortunately, he could ease through games 5 and 6, and they were still okay. Um, but it's just so sad to see something like that happen to a guy who definitely grabbed the headlines throughout the entire postseason. Really, um, I just looking at how Indy kind of, I can't say imploded, but they did not have the ball movement without Halliburton. I think they rode the adrenaline into the second quarter. They had a 1 point lead at the half. Um, they were still somewhat into the quarter, and it was 50. They tied it at 56. OKC went on a 9-0 run. Indy got it back down to 4, and then OKC's 19-2 run just put the distance. It was too big of a distance for them to get over, and it was a shame because they really, you could see where Halliburton was missing. The ball movement was not as good. Passing, the leadership. TJ McConnell is a great spark plug off the bench as a bench player, but when he's the lead guy, in my opinion, even though he has, I think, 6 assists, um, he is a me drive to the basket, me get the score type player. And
I mean, he was he's what was it? He scored 10 points and was the only person scoring for the team for like what was it, 5 minutes or something like that.
yeah, he was the
Or
only one.
like
And Siakam like freaking disappeared. He had 10 points in the first half and 6 for the rest of the game. I think he only had 3 in each quarter, the third and the fourth. But
Yeah, he wasn't even
well,
the lead scorer in the game.
what?
it's interesting.
Uh,
Oh, you
Siakam
go
was
back.
not the lead scorer for the Pacers. It was Mathurin this game.
Yeah. And Mathurin just he kind of stayed in to the very last second. And while all the bench guys were in, he was just pounding away trying to score and will that thing, even when time was up. So I think like his last 6 points were more garbage time points than anything. But at least hats off to him that he really took the bull by the horns. They needed something because the third quarter was so brutal. Siakam, Nemhard, Neesmith, nobody could hit anything. And it wasn't, you know, there was a lot of open shots and there was a lot of, well defended shots too. Chet had 5 blocks. He looked great, which is funny because I took a note here in the second quarter. I wrote Chet invisible, invisible. I mean, like he was just running up and down the court doing nothing, not passing, not scoring, not blocking, nothing. And I think that was the whole thing. When they went into halftime, they needed a wake up call because I think it was Lisa Salters said that as they were going into the locker, as Indy was going into the locker room, they were going, "We can do this, we can do this," and they really believed it. And early on in the third quarter, they were still hanging tough. And then the the swarm of bees, that's what I think of the Thunder, the swarm of bees. Their defense is just second to none. That's what created their win. I mean, they're
Well,
the
that's
Thunder,
what had.
but
I mean, I was gonna say it was what was it? What was it? Game four when they just clamped Indy shut and they just would not let them set up their offense.
yeah,
And they stood pat. I think what was keeping I heard this take and I think it was actually really solid why Indy was so close to kept it so close in the first half was because OKC game planned so much around Halliburton that when you take Halliburton out, it's uh-oh, what are we supposed to do now?
yeah,
And so it's more of a shock to OKC's system. So when they went to halftime, OKC is able, Dagnall's able to sit there and be like, okay, here's what we need to do.
right.
And they were able to just readjust and just take it away.
Here's some really awesome defensive stats. Okay, OKC won the blocks 8-4. Chet had 5 of them. They won the steals 14-6, and Indy had 21 turnovers to OKC's 7, and OKC turned those 21 turnovers into 32 points. So the defense created offense, and you
Which
know,
is a far which is a far stretch from their first game when OKC had what was it had 6 turnovers or no. Yeah, OKC had 6 turnovers and Indy had like another 20
25.
turnovers, but OKC, yeah.
Indy won the game. I don't know how. They hung around, and they just know how to close it out. And again, they lost their closer. That was another thing for the second half that you look at how Halliburton handles the ball. He can slash, he can bob and weave. Um, TJ McConnell is not a bob and weave. He is, you know, full steam ahead. Look out. And
I will. Oh no, no, you go.
I was just going
I
to
was just
say,
gonna
I mean,
say,
all right, I'll just finish it out. He took Chat a couple of times down the baseline. One time he did score, but then the next 2 times, I think Chat blocked the shot or altered the shot. So, I mean, he did have a little success on it, and kudos to him for the bravery of taking on a guy a foot taller than you, you know. But, anyways, go ahead.
I I was just gonna say, up until like 2 years ago, I remember when TJ McConnell played for Philly, what was it, 2017-ish or something like that. And when he went over to Indy, I feel like he had just kind of gotten forgot about, and every once in a while you'd see him pop up. And then just these last two playoffs, he's just been a different animal. And it's just been, yeah, it's been inspiring in a sense, you know?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, he's a spark plug and it's infectious. Unfortunately, I mean, he was between him and Matherin, the plus minus was brutal. One was minus 14 and the other was minus 12. Um, I think the only guy who had um, yeah, except for the garbage time guys, Neesmith was the only guy with a positive plus minus. And Indy, he had a plus 6. And he
Well,
was,
if I wasn't he was the one that like they kind of had a tiny run in the near like what 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter or something like that. Neesmith had had a three, and I think he got it to like 11 or something like that. And
are you
was it
talking
Nee?
about the Knicks series? You're not talking about last
No,
night.
no. Wasn't it? Was it Neesmith or Nemhard? One of them had like a three. They got it to like 14. They were only down by like 14 or 11. I think it was like 14 points then. And
Had to
he
been
got
their
it.
card.
Yeah, it was Nemhard then. I keep on getting them confused. The name sounds so familiar.
I got
But gets a three. They're down by like 14 with like 4 minutes left, or 5 or 4 minutes left. And you're just sitting there, like, are they gonna do it again?
yeah, I
Yeah,
know
and
that's what
it's
I thought. It was 22 at 7:41 left, and it was 12 with 4:47 left. And SGA picked up his fifth foul with 4 minutes
yes,
and 11
yes.
seconds.
Yeah,
And
and
I'm like,
it you just kind of sit there and you just go, get that last foul and let's just have a game without SGA and Halliburton and just watch the war of the century for 4 minutes.
yeah, yeah,
Because I that's the only way that's the only way they could have, you know, capsized them was just get SGA out of the game completely, not just lock them up defensively.
yeah. That was it was he played a clean rest of the game. Here's an
Yeah.
interesting thing also. Obi Toppin was such a positive force during the entire playoff run and in the finals, and he had no points last night. I, he was a non-factor. I think he gets a lot of his points from Halliburton alley oops or Nemhard, anybody who's willing to throw him an alley oop.
To
And
be fair, that was top end this whole season though, is he was very much a um he was very polarizing in that matter. He would, there was those games where I think it was like around February or something like that, where he just looked like the second coming of Michael Jordan. Kidding, of course. But and then he just comes right back to earth and, he looks like that guy that the Knicks kind of gave up on. And, he had his moments in the playoffs for sure, but then he also he has had his stinkers during the playoffs too. And I think that's just where Toppin is that he's either, you're going to get this amazing role player or you are going to get this, oh, hey, look, there's Toppin.
just a guy, a
Yep.
jack.
Hey, yep. Just got his headphones in and is getting cardio on the court.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
So I think it's fascinating that this rebuild's kind of come together because it was what about 10 was it 10 years ago that they moved on from the Westbrook Durant Harden team that they had. Actually, that might have been about 12 years
13,
ago.
13 years ago was when they made it to the finals, and then Harden got traded in in the beginning of the 2012, 2013 year, coming out of the lock-in, or the lockout, excuse me. And then Durant left in, summer of 2016. We all infamously remember that off season. And then what I mean, honestly, the move off of Westbrook and Paul George was 5 years ago. Sorry, 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Barely.
Yep.
It was the 2019. or it was the end of the 2018-2019 season when they moved off of both of them. So going into the 2019-2020 season.
Yep. So things have come full circle with the team. And I think now it's interesting that they're so well lined up to have a future with these guys. They got a pretty young squad. You got an MVP in Shea. It seems that they could be around for a bit with the team that they have.
They have a
All
bunch of
depends on the
benefits
salary
too
cap.
that they could use to tweak things if something happens. Um, you know, Sam Presti's a really good GM. I mean, he created the Durant, Westbrook, Harden squad, and then he created this one, and he's very patient. Um, do you guys remember when they ended up getting Chris Paul? And Chris Paul was such a great leader that he led him to the playoffs, and they traded him after that season. It was like, hey, wait a minute, we're supposed to be tanking here, not winning. But
Just a it just a thought. Presti started with the Thunder in what was it? 06, 07, going into the Durant when they drafted Durant.
so when they were
Or
in
sorry,
Seattle,
yeah, when they were Seattle. So I think it was he started like the '07 off season. I think he started then. He was 32 years old, if I'm correct. And he was working with um
San
the
Antonio.
Spurs. Yep, San Antonio under RC Buford and Popovich, obviously.
That's awesome.
I read that and I'm just like, yeah, okay. Jeez.
Oh man, there Popovich has such a tree. It is amazing.
The Popovich shoe is insane. I think that's a whole other podcast that we could spend 40 minutes on.
Yeah,
Just looking at who that man's like touched and trained, and
yeah.
it's insane. It's insane. He and Buford. He and Buford. I don't think RC Buford gets enough credit.
No, unfortunately, though, I mean, Pop went from being the GM to back out in the coaching. So Buford took over, but I mean, a lot of decisions were Pop's.
Mhm.
And I don't know which ones. I mean, I've heard it's only what we've heard, what we assume. So I should probably stop taking away from Buford. I mean, it's a working relationship that's worked for over 25 years.
Yep.
You know.
Salute to Pop.
Yep.
The good portion of my life.
Yep.
I I don't want to talk about it, but I do we do need to discuss the Halliburton in the room. Um, I don't think we need to go over the injury too much. Like the Achilles tear sucks. Like that and it's terrible too. I was talking with Caleb yesterday and just before the game and I go, I don't like that calf strain. I have a feeling I'm like my biggest thought is don't turn into Durant. That's exactly what happened. And it's in game seven, literally the last game of the NBA season, guaranteed.
Yep.
And I heard this stat. There have been eight Achilles tears this year, two of which were on Indiana, and three of which were during the playoffs.
And
And
weren't they
Hey,
all in teams that like it really hurt them?
and they're all in the East, Indiana, Boston, and Milwaukee.
oh, Dame.
So, yep. Yeah, Lillard. So it makes you start wondering, what does the East look like and how treacherous does this look?
Yeah. I mean, that may be
Who comes
why.
out of the East next year?
Well, that may be why there's no talk about Giannis getting traded because
Oh yeah.
we um we actually were talking about this before you got on, Daniel. But Giannis may have decided to stay in Milwaukee because not just because it's familiar and all, but the Celtics, we're not going to be anything, and we're going to trade. You see the trade rumors already with Drew Holiday and Porzingis, and I don't think it's going to end there.
Mhm.
And then Halliburton's out. I think Dame will come back, you know, after the trade deadline, but at least he'll be.
Oh, I don't think we're gonna see him next season.
I don't know. I mean I thought no, but I had heard something. I don't remember who said it, but it was like there's a possibility he would come back late in the season and make it for the playoffs. We'll see. I don't know,
That's
but
it.
it's going to be a
I
big
hope
year.
so.
It's going
I
to be a
hope
big year
so.
for the East, and plus the Knicks don't even know who their coach is going to be. They may get
I
Timberwolves.
forgot to mention them. Yeah, they don't. They still think they can get Jason Kidd. I saw that they are still edging on trying to get Jason Kidd somehow, some way.
No.
Maybe
I don't-
maybe they'll pull a Nuggets and you'll see Brunson running plays up for the team on the sideline next year.
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
just like Jokic.
Yep. All right, let's take a little bit of a hard transition here. I did do a quick double check on the stats. So, Dad, you were right. There are several other players that have won Finals MVP as well as regular season MVP, including Larry Bird. So to name a
Right.
yeah. So to name a few: Willis Reed, Hakeem Olajuwon, Tim Duncan, and Moses Malone was the other one. Hats
Okay.
off to Moses Malone. There we go.
Moses Malone. What a
Hey,
dog.
who we started this podcast with.
That's right.
But you want
Uh,
to know who did it? Who hasn't done it? James Harden. Oh,
womp womp. All right. Other big news this week. Kevin Durant was traded to the Houston Rockets. A lot of people saw that he was going to move on from Phoenix. No love lost between him and the Suns. It sounds like he was happy to get out of there. Houston gave up, in my opinion, a lot of capital, but they're really going in heavy on winning now. So they traded away Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, number 10 overall pick, and then 5 second rounders. So they are really banking on this next season, which they've got a lot of the parts there. But if this does not go well, they are in some trouble in the future. I personally think that Kevin Durant is towards the end of his career. So I did not love this trade for the Rockets. I looked up his last few seasons, and he has missed 20 or more games in 4 out of the last 5 seasons, not including the 1920 season, which he missed completely because of his injury, which you already mentioned. So my early read on this is that uh, the Houston Rockets are putting a lot on Durant, questionable on whether or not he's going to be healthy. And I'm glad that the Suns got something, but I think it's funny that they ended up with like 5 starting shooting guards. So they have got Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, and Grayson Allen.
Oh,
There's your
Grayson Allen. Okay,
there's
yeah.
your starting five. Grayson Allen's, kind of iffy there, but there's your starting five. We'll shoot lights out from the 3-point land and don't ever expect us to rebound.
Well, they still
but
have
Grayson Allen and Dylan Brooks
Nurkic.
might punch you in the back of the head.
Yeah. Um, I think so. Okay, here's the thought. Jalen Green was going to be a restricted free agent at the end of the season. And okay, so Phoenix has to get rid of Kevin Durant. And he has 3 landing spots that he wants to go. And everyone knows it. Or you could take him for a 1 year rental. Because Minnesota and the 2 teams that were up for a 1 year rental were Minnesota and Toronto. And Toronto is nowhere near. I'm sure he would have said
They
no.
didn't want to trade Pirtle.
Oh, that's right. And that's
They
true.
didn't want to trade
Isn't it?
Pirtle.
They didn't want to trade Jakob Pertl. Okay. So, yeah, that's funny. That's humbling. I think that's a slap in his face.
I
Uh,
have my take on Masai Ujiri, but well, again, that's another podcast.
okay. Um, but so and Minnesota didn't want to bite in on the trade. So you've got those 3 teams. Miami's not going to give up any player worth anything. So and they don't have really great draft picks. So now you've got it down to San Antonio and Houston, both of which have some good draft picks. And what Phoenix was looking for was a draft pick for this year specifically because if they tank, their next four draft picks are not under their control. They had, I think it's Brooklyn has the 26, 27, and 29, and a swap for 28. So
The
Phoenix,
Grizzlies have the 26th pick, actually.
what's that?
The Grizzlies have the 26th pick, actually. They have the Phoenix pick.
Or that's
It
the
was part of
year.
the
No, I'm talking about the year. 19 or 2026, 2027, 28, 29.
yeah,
That,
Brooklyn doesn't have that pick.
oh, the 26 pick? Okay.
Yeah, that was part of the Bane trade for Memphis and with Memphis and Orlando. It's like a it's the who's ever got the worst pick between or whoever's got the worst draft pick between Phoenix, Washington, and Orlando, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
It's a really weird swap. Sorry, I didn't mean to fact check you, but I was just like, no, the Grizzlies
No,
have it.
that's good. No, I'm glad you did. Glad you did.
Everybody's
Uh,
fact
but
checking tonight.
but
I
the
gotta give my boys some credit.
but still, I mean, here's so Phoenix really is down to two people: San Antonio and Houston. They can't tank because next year they don't have a first round draft pick. They can't get anybody new to come in because they're maxed out salary wise. So they've got to do the best they can for this year. Okay, so Houston's got the number 10 pick. San Antonio has the number two, which they're not giving up, and the number 14. So those are the two things that are in play for this year. And I think that's what Phoenix was looking at. We got to get something for this year to give at least Devin Booker. I think what I think they're going to do is say, Bradley Beal, we're not going to play you. You got to dump that no play clause. You're not going to play this year. That's the only way to get out of it and just sit them. I'm not sure. Anyways, so the draft pick was
I
good.
heard an interesting take on that actually. I heard somebody say the Bucks should just straight up offer a Lillard for um Beal. It's the same contract.
Does Phoenix want Damian Lillard?
Do they want Bradley Beal?
Okay, well, I mean, at least Beal
Who
can
would you
play.
take? Would you take a Lillard that's out for a season? Or would you take a Bradley Beal that is doing nothing?
That's like, let me trade my used up banana peel for your moldy sandwich.
Exactly. Exactly.
Hey, that banana peel you can compost.
So
Compost the sandwich.
I was just going to say for the
No, you
Durant,
can't.
since we're down to, Houston had the better pick to give them. Now you got to look at the players, and San Antonio wasn't going to give up Devin Vassell. They're certainly not going to give up Wemby. Most likely not
They weren't going to give up Castle. That was the
Stephen
big part.
Castle. They're not going to give up Castle. I mean, maybe they would have given up De'Aaron Fox. I don't even know. I would think probably not. Um, so, I mean, as far as the best that Phoenix could do, even though they put themselves in this position, and we're not, you know, applauding them for putting themselves in a bad position, but this is really the best trade they were going to get. They
I
were.
think I think for a lot of the critics out there, the argument comes down to where do you see Jalen Green's ceiling at? Because you
He's
either see it one of two ways. He's a an incredible scorer that he's 23 years old, so he's just got to keep on growing into his shoes, or he is just going to be a shoot first, ask questions later guy that will get hot at random times, but will also shoot you out of the game. I think something we need to note is that what was it? They last their game seven against Golden State between this is a funny thing that they both got traded. Dillon Brooks and Jalen Green, I think combined for game seven, 5 of 21.
Yeah,
sounds
Jalen.
about right. he was 3 of 8. Green was three
Ooh.
of eight and scored 8 points.
And Brooks likes to shoot, so he probably got he got the other 13 shots.
Yeah, probably because that's what he thinks. If we're down and we got to have that, I'm going to shoot it. You know, which he's just not. That not the answer. I don't know. They had to make a hard decision. Are we gonna sell off Jalen Green, which could be part of the future, but you know he really didn't have anything in the playoffs. He had one good game out of those 7 games. The rest were duds.
Yeah,
And
he
Amen Thompson proved he was a bigger asset than Jalen Green.
Yep. I like the Rockets hanging on to Amen Thompson. I think he showed some promise in that playoff series, and I think especially playing behind Kevin Durant, that could be one of the upsides is that Durant through the quiet leadership uh, helps develop some of the young talent on the team. That's certainly an upside.
Yeah,
It's
and
something to note. They don't even have like they haven't played and I think this needs to be also recognized too in regards to giving up too much in regard Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks. Dylan Brooks has that defensive prowess and that leadership that you do strive for. But you also can take note, Reed Shepard did not play at all this year. Neither did Cam Whitmore. And they both, like, granted, we always say things like tentatively when mentioning this, but I think there is some merit to it. They both lit up the D League. They had no reason they should have been, there was no reason they should be playing in the D League.
well,
And these guys did not play and they did not get traded. So you just got rid of, I mean, granted, two slots for one. That's the way I'm looking at it. And Cam Whitmore is a similar position to Jalen Green. I still stand by it. I don't. Houston had plenty of players that they could not play just because of having too many guys.
right.
They got rid of some. They got rid of some pieces, but I don't see how unless Jalen Green turns into an All NBA player, which yeah, he could maybe be a fringe player. Like I don't know. I
Maybe he
mean,
just needs the right
Durant wants,
system to grow too.
yeah, I mean, and like that's the thing too, is send him to a rebuild team and just be like, okay, here you go. Go shoot your brains out, and maybe develop. But that also can build bad habits. So
Yeah, I'm not real crazy about that. If he doesn't have the right coach, then you've just got someone who's filling in just to fill the space so they can, like Charlotte, whoever the next coach on Charlotte is, you know.
but that's not a good thing either because,
No.
you look at how LaMelo was and Green had Ime Udoka this season and Udoka benched him.
Yep. Yeah.
And granted, it's been 1 year, but I think there
Two.
is.
Udoka's been there for 2.
He didn't coach last year.
I thought this was his first season.
Am I
This is his
wrong?
first season, Dad. Yeah.
Okay. Seems like eons ago when he was with us.
We need a Rolodex of fact checks tonight.
Yeah, you guys are probably right, and I'm probably wrong.
All right, I think we're coming up on time. I will end us with a quote by Shams at The Athletic. I thought this was a good one. So Shams said that if Durant buys in and stays healthy, this is a 50+ win team with a puncher's chance in the playoffs, but the margin for error is razor thin. I think that pretty much sums it up.
There's definitely some questions that need to be answered, but I think Durant definitely raises their ceiling as opposed to just firing it all back next season. Houston has too many guys and they need to lighten the load so that way you can usher in some of the guys that are just rotting away on your bench doing nothing.
Yep. And Vegas would agree with you. Houston's odds went from plus 6,000 to plus 800 to win the championship next season. From looking pretty good for Houston, at least from an
If they were
outsider's
in the
perspective.
East, I would say sure, no problem. Let's let them come out of the East because who
Yeah,
else is there?
West is so hard, so
Oh
low.
my gosh. I'm sitting over here just wondering if the Grizzlies can change conferences this offseason.
All right. Well,
What a great day that would be.
We'll call that a night. Thanks everybody for listening. This has been Husbands Know Better. We'll catch you next time.